for the jewel in the crown and the crown itself is Lydia Kerwin, and she is from Loving Islands. So give Lydia a round of applause.
Sorry, I just put a timer on. Okay, where is someone over there timing?
I'll be timing.
Okay. Cool. Okay, ready to go. So I'm Lydia, I'm from the social enterprise Loving Islands. We basically help remote Pacific Island farmers in Fiji improve their standards of living through organic farming, I guess. Over the next few minutes, I'll take you through a bit about how we've gotten to where we are, where we're going, our strategy of getting there, some of our key resources, and obviously our social impacts and how we're measuring those. So there's a video I might come back to later if we have time. Okay, so as I said, our mission is basically to improve the standard of living for remote Pacific Island farmers. I'm half Fijian, half Australian, so I guess our pilot project starts in my mother's village. The research kind of started January last year. I got a research grant from the Sydney University to do some international research just to figure out if organics would be a sustainable means for economic development for these people. Found out it was, given certain challenges were addressed. Then led to me starting kind of like a website blog to engage with different consumers, kind of B2C, which I thought at the time was the best way for us forward. It's now, I think, B2B. Then went in August to kind of engage with various communities to find out if this was actually something that they'd be interested in, what resources they really needed, and the specific challenges that these islands faced. November, December, I took the first steps to importing products and finding a bit more about that process as a small business. So what kind of some of the barriers were when you're dealing with small volumes and small amounts of money. There are quite a few, it works out. April, where we officially launched the business, so that was with funding from the NISA program, if anyone's familiar with it, which is good. And then in May and June, I helped the community there, I guess, secure $25,000 for our first project in Fiji, which is enabling a 13-month training program around organic certification, and just various administration tasks that go along with that. Oh, sorry, that was a slide early. Okay, so our key partners at the moment, obviously the communities. The training partner we're working with is the Pacific Regional NGO, Pacific Organic and Ethical Trade Community, the US Embassy's Regional Environmental Office over in Suva, and then of course the Fiji government as well, through kind of first approach in that January research stage last year. Okay, so all of that, over the last 4 months we kind of focused on, I was thinking of focusing on product development and retail in Australia, so buying from these farmers and helping them, achieve market access through retail, which is a pretty kind of standard model. I found out quite quickly that in order to make this money, we just have to be moving like thousands of products a week to kind of generate the impact that I wanted to achieve. So instead of that, after a meeting with a mentor, like this organic marketplace to allow buyers to buy directly from Pacific Island farmers, which is where we've been headed, I've just decided we'd move there quite a bit quicker if we just go there directly rather than trying to raise the capital through product sales and whatnot. The benefits of this is basically, so we'll leverage our partnership with PoetCom that already works specifically to train organic farmers all around the Pacific. We've modified the training documents for them to do this to kind of raise the level to international standard like the ACO, which is at the moment just too costly for Pacific Island farmers and communities. So through their training, they'll come onto this platform and be able to list their products that they have for sale, or we'll list them for them, and then they can just kind of input their volumes and harvest dates, things like that, And then for the buyers, just simplify that whole process from buying and importing internationally by giving them a DDP price, or the pricing is like delivered duty paid. So all they have to think about is the cost that it lands in Australia, which is the price that's given, and then domestic shipping as well. In terms of where we're at now, it's kind of raising capital for the MVP, which I can get at the best. The best case scenario would be 20K. Highest is about 80, 70 or 80. If we're currently going to do just a mass stock sale of what we've currently got, it should be about 10K net profit. We've got some service income that's coming in from Fiji, which is about another 10K. And then additionally, probably a few more government grants or applications, investment, things like that. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong slide. Yeah, that's just a bit of pricing of how the model will work. Basically, if we focus on this market access component, it's fully like a service industry. So, like I said, leveraging the partnership with Poetcom and the government and whatnot to help provide the producers for the platform, and then as an international business, help make margins on foreign exchange, like your shipping rates, insurance, and things. So just kind of provide those economy of scale benefits to the smaller buyers in Australia. So your small businesses or even large businesses, like I was talking to lovely ladies from Lush over there, maybe Woolies Macro, things like that. Yeah, like I said, MVP is about 20 to 70K. We can raise that in-house if we need to. Next steps outside of that will be registering business in Fiji, which will happen in December, which will just allow us to work a bit closer with government and NGOs in a greater capacity, and then kind of look at that MVP development from December to March, and then launching in April to May next year. Okay, I've got about 50 seconds. So the resources that are key to our business is obviously our partnerships, which are pretty irreplaceable, but we'll look to secure them further with contracts once we launch the business in Fiji. Also personnel, I'm not going anywhere. And we look to hire people over there, like our coordinators and whatnot, with as much emotional intelligence as they do academic and whatnot. And then obviously the ordering platform, having the training component built into that just means that if and when we ever would decide to sell this, that it comes as a complete package. So you've already got the producers that are organically certified to our tailored certification documents, ready to go, and then we've kind of partnered with different logistics along the way to give the best price. And then, obviously our service back to community and what we can provide. Oh, sorry, a few more photos. Yeah, there we go. Cheers, thank you.
Latia Kerwin. Next up, the People's Fabric. I would like to introduce Ali Cap, who is the founder and managing director. So make them feel welcome.
Oh, exciting. Thank you. So I'd like you to meet Puna. Puna is a 30-year-old weaver from a small village in West Borneo, Indonesia, and a member of a community-based women's weaving cooperative. Through the various motifs hand-woven into this ikat fabric you can see up here, Puna depicts the virtues of adaptability, being a valuable member of society, the sacred bond of marriage, and also shares with us the symbols of fertility, security, and prosperity. This piece of fabric tells a story, and the People's Fabric are bringing these stories to your living room from community to couch. In March of this year, the People's Fabric consolidated a three-way partnership with a not-for-profit organisation called Planet Indonesia and a women's weaving cooperative. The main goal of this partnership is to provide women weavers in West Kalimantan, which is located on the island of Borneo, an increased and sustained access to the international market where their ikat textiles can be sold. Through this partnership, the People's Fabric support programs that promote both cultural identity and sustainable resource management by building communal businesses that result in economically resilient communities. So the cooperative started with just 25 women and has now grown to have over 1,500 members who are spread across 44 different villages in Borneo. This means that 1,500 families are currently on a pathway out of poverty, and today I want to share with you how the People's Fabric has the potential to change so many more lives. So we believe that empowering women needs to go beyond economic development, and that economics must be integrated into cultural preservation in order to elevate local rights, traditions and customs. Increasing local income and improving access to savings and loan systems builds local resilience and decreases environmental degradation. These programs enable members from low-income communities to avoid participating in destructive local industries such as logging, palm oil and animal trafficking. They provide economic benefits for preserving local resources and traditional customs and values. Planet Indonesia refers to this method as a social fusion of development and environmental work, recognising there is a connection between economics, people, culture and the environment. So Planet Indonesia, the Weaving Cooperative and the People's Fabric undertake a sustainable fair trade approach to economically empower the women of Borneo by revitalising traditional artwork. Hand-dyed and hand-woven ikat textiles are produced through small working business groups, and funds generated from the sale of these textiles are used to further sustain the long-term goals of cooperative members. These goals may include building their businesses, furthering their employment opportunities, planning their children's education and preparing for their families' healthcare. This model is having a positive impact on the lives of women and their communities. It is not only providing artisans a chance to develop their own skills whilst making an income, it also creates opportunities for these skills to be passed on to their children and help preserve local cultural practices. Ultimately, we are aiming for healthier communities, educated children with bright futures, and families with incomes that are independent from environmentally destructive industries. So currently the cooperative is based in the Regency of Sintang, which is a very bumpy 10-hour ride from Pontianak on the west coast of Borneo, along narrow roads riddled with potholes. There's palm plantations for as far as the eye can see.
Have you ever been made to do something against your own wishes and you had no power to say no? Ladies and gentlemen, I stand today not just to speak and promote about Generation 414, but to represent the millions of men, women, and children trapped in slavery in the world today. When a man, desperate for work, finds himself in a factory, or on a fishing boat, or in a field working, toiling with little or no pay, beaten if he tries to escape, that is slavery. When a little boy is kidnapped, turned into a child soldier, forced to kill or to be killed, that is slavery. When a woman or child is locked in a sweatshop or trapped in a home as a domestic servant, alone, abused, and incapable of leaving, that is slavery. When a little girl is sold by her impoverished family or by the false promises of a better life and then imprisoned in a brothel and tortured, sometimes to death if she resists, that is slavery. It is barbaric, it is evil, and it has no place in our civilized world. This sadly describes the daily lives of over 45 million people, men, women, and children around the world today. That is almost double the population of Australia. This trade, in all its many forms, nets about $150 billion each year for the traffickers. $150 billion. Women and girls make up 98% of the victims trafficked for sexual exploitation. About 2 million children are exploited every year in the global sex trade. The average age of a trafficked victim is only 12 years old. Imagine the life of this child and what she has to lead till someone steps in to do something. This is what Generation 414 envisions to do. Sorry, there's a missing slide. Our vision is to reach, rescue, and restore women and children whose lives have been negatively impacted by the sex industry through the sale of the handmade products. Our purpose is to serve a notoriously difficult to reach demographic of commercially sexually exploited women, and we do that by providing the women with an option to leave the sex trade should they desire to do so. We offer counseling, survivor-centered strength-based recovery during their stay in the safe homes. Education support and skills training opportunities are also accessible for the women, while we provide jobs and give them a secure and a sustainable, dignified income. This model allows the empowerment of women to know that they have value, they have purpose, and they definitely have worth. Profits from the sales of their handmade products goes to fund education programs so that their children do not end up in their mother's shoes. Human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel for another person's labor. One expert says that trafficking happens when need meets greed. Trafficking happens in sectors where workers are excluded from protection and denied of their basic human rights. But today's slavery is about commerce. The goods of the enslaved people, what the enslaved people produce, have value, but the people producing them have none. The hands you see are the hands of traffic victims trapped in factories in the fashion industry. They mix dyes in long barrels and submerge the fabrics into liquid up to their elbows, but the dye they use is very, very toxic. In Uzbekistan, one of the world's largest exporters of cotton, it is also one of the world's offenders in forced and child labor. Their government sends up to 100,000 children every year out of school to work in their cotton fields. They work in the worst conditions, often with no access to water, and there is that immense pressure to hit the quotas, so much that there is often stories of child suicide. I believe that it is the responsibility of the Australian garment industry to actually know and question who is producing their garment and the circumstances in which they are produced. And how many of us use a smartphone? The use of cobalt, used in lithium-ion batteries, come from mines where children as young as 7 work in dangerous conditions. The glamorous shots displays marketing of state-of-art technologies and is a stark contrast to children carrying bags of rocks and miners in narrow man-made tunnels, often risking their lives. Millions of people enjoy this wonderful new technology, but rarely ask how they are made. Ladies and gentlemen, leaders of your own organizations, I challenge you today to have a very good look at your own internal work processes and find out your own slavery footprint. We need to create a culture where people no longer have to stay silent about this exploitation. For if this is tolerated in our communities, then it is so easy for this injustice to perpetuate. It may seem like an impossible challenge and the numbers are stacked against us. But if we do not start now, then when? We need to hold our governments and companies accountable for ethical production and workflow, for creating better laws, and for preventing trafficking in our own communities. We need to buy from suppliers that have transparent and slave-free supply chains, supporting organizations addressing trafficking, and talking to our friends and family about this issue. Our goal must be one to build a world where everyone, men, women, and children, are free, are safe, and have a chance to prosper. Ladies and gentlemen, I urge you today to raise your voice, to use your influence, to speak for freedom and injustice. And together, we can be a generation that will be the change that we wish to see in our world. Thank you.
I'm going to share a bit about my personal journey and why I'm aligned with Fruit to Work. I grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney, a suburb called Claymore, which is a housing estate out in the western Sydney suburbs, and yeah, pretty rough neighbourhood. My mum was an alcoholic and addicted to gambling. My father, the only real relationship I had with him was by visiting him in jail. By the age of 14, I moved out because I just couldn't handle being in that abusive household anymore. But the problem with that was the fact that I had nowhere to go, so I was homeless. I continued to go to school because that's where I find my next bed to stay at. Mates' places, friends' places, etc. By the age of 16, I wanted to be around the cool kids at school. And all the cool kids at school were all experimenting with drugs and getting into trouble. Literally a month after my 18th birthday, I was incarcerated for a crime and sentenced to 3.5 years jail. And I committed that crime to support my addiction to ice, which was my drug of choice at the time. Looking back and knowing what I know today, I guess I was just trying to find somewhere to belong. When I was released from custody, I can remember my first parole appointment with my parole officer, where he stayed on the other side of the table and he said to me, "Mr. Antoki, you got 20 days to get a job. Otherwise I'm going to breach you and you're going to go back in." So I went out there and I applied for as many jobs as I could. But every time I got asked the question, "Where were you for the last 3 years on your CV?" or sign that police check to say, "Yes, I had been in custody," the opportunities of employment would be shut in my face. I was lucky enough to have a mentor that picked me up out of the gutter and believed in me and gave me a second chance in life. And today, I stand before you as a qualified drug and alcohol worker / mental health care worker, qualified community welfare worker, youth worker. I've been in the sector for over 14 years and I've helped hundreds of kids, disadvantaged kids in local communities, and work with kids coming out of custody in changing their lives. And that's what drew me to Fruit to Work. Because what Fruit to Work has come up with is an amazing social enterprise that actually gives people just like me a second chance at life. What we do is we deliver fruit to office spaces across Melbourne CBD with the sole mission of employing former offenders that have done extremely hard work in getting their lives back on track through rehabilitation, and are at that next stage of actually reintegrating back into society on a full extent. We've partnered up with specialised support services, so that way we can do a wraparound model in providing the proper support for each person that we employ through Fruit to Work. The program itself is 6 months, so they're employed with us for 6 months, and what we've done is we've built relationships with other employers out there, such as logistics and other transport companies, to be able to get these people long-term employed with these companies once they finish with Fruit to Work. We kicked off in May this year and we're already up to 100 boxes. Last night I pitched at the Bennelong Foundation and I used the same slogan. We want to hit 450 boxes for our business to be sustainable. If we hit 1,000 boxes, that means it's $1 million a year. But more importantly, that means we can hire at least 16 former offenders who just need a second chance, who have done extremely hard work in getting their lives back on track, and employment's that actual next step for them to reintegrate back into society in a positive way. That's what we need. I'm here today to say to you guys, thank you so much for letting me pitch, but more importantly, get out there and order our fruit, because it's making a real difference in people's lives.
Now that Mark has put me here in front of you guys today, and I'm pretty happy and I'm pretty healthy. That Mark's also responsible for a whole lot of beautiful art being made. Now, while practicing art in my road to recovery from serious mental illness, I started to think to myself, well, if I can do this for me, imagine what it can do for others. So I set to work. I started working with people, and almost immediately I started to see the health impact. Art is good for us. Now you might be thinking, I'm not very creative, I can't really draw. Everyone is creative. It's built in, it comes from our imagination. We use it day in, day out. We use it at work, we use it at home, we use it parking the car. As for drawing, for me tonight's about making a mark and seeing where it can take us. I researched, now the arts health movement has been around for over 30 years. Academics all over the world are telling us that art is good for us. We should be doing it. Now we do see arts activities in our sectors, but they're fringe activities. They're the first to go when money runs out. In my personal experience, accessing health services, there was no link between art and health. In my professional experience, and I've been executive officer of an Aboriginal Arts Corporation, I've sat on a hospital board, and I've worked in community services for well over 10 years, directly with clients, and I haven't seen any clear links. So why? Why isn't it embedded? Why isn't it ingrained in our service sectors? Why isn't it made part of core business? Losing track of my slides here. So, CAN is a network, professional and emerging artists. Clients such as CoHealth, ISIS Primary Care, Salvation Army, ethical art sales agents, and wonderful, wonderful people participating. With a turnover of roughly 80k, this is what we're achieving. We're pretty proud of that so far. This is where we start to get really excited. This is where we see that we're getting outcomes. This is where we see that we're making an impact. The highlighted one there is an interesting one. I just thought I'd point it out. This is an area where we think we can save the sector money. Now, we're getting feedback from professionals, health service professionals, saying what you are doing in our workshops, in our spaces, on site, is you are giving us a platform to work alongside our clients, to build proper relationships, trusting relationships. Now, those relationships have surely got to be maximising the service delivery, and we're going to evaluate that. We think it's going to make for more effective service provision. So, making art is having an impact. Now, if we look at sector one here, we think we've talked about volatility, things falling over, money running out. So, and the competition's probably a bit too high. So we put that on the side for a minute. The healthcare and social services sector, 6 combined there. We think there's room to move within that. 85k is a needle in a haystack. So we know the system's stretched, but we've still got room to move. Sector 3 is an example of the corporate sector. Now, we're not just looking for corporate responsibility funding alone. We want participation. We need corporate clients. We offer fantastic team building workshops. They are sensory experiential activities. Again, by putting people together, shoulder to shoulder, strengthening relationships occur, people feel safer and more valued with their colleagues and with their teams, and in an environment where innovation is slammed down our throat, it's the only competitive edge left. Why wouldn't we turn to the arts, creativity? Let's stimulate those neuro pathways. And why wouldn't we offer the corporate world the opportunity to enjoy the health benefits as well? Let's line those foyers, offices, common area spaces with beautiful artwork. And this is also an opportunity for the corporate world to work alongside the communities we're currently working with. The diagram we've done yesterday. So I suppose the point of difference here is it starts with the artist with lived experience. So at grassroots level, forcing upward energy that has to be heard at some point. And we stay with the tree analogy, going from the cross-section to the tree dropping fruit, fertilising the ground, and the seeds representing the emerging artists coming through as facilitators. And they take that experience and skills back to their communities. It's a great empowerment that happens. And the forest grows, the canopy forms, and we keep moving forward. So where to from here? We need that corporate participation. We're talking to people already. We need to help cover our first year deficit, a loan, a grant, investment, competition prizes. We need backup support, business management, marketing, and we need to establish an ethical art bank, ensuring that people and their work are properly represented. Remember, tonight is about making a mark and seeing where it can take us. Thank you so much for having me.